All right, welcome to another episode of the All American Hoops podcast. I'm Chris Driscoll. As per usual, I'm joined by my older brother, John Driscoll.
Hey, just thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. And also, for the third time ever, I'm also having a friend of the show and also new co-host of the NBA Max podcast, Ori B from Hoop Social.
Thanks for having me, my guy. These are a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely psyched about today's episode. Today's episode is episode 64. So it's funny because the last time Warriors on here was episode 46 for Aaron Baines. I'm going to give you guys 2 seconds to figure this out. Do you know any players to wear the number 64 in NBA history?
Ooh.
No, you do not. There's never been any player to wear the number 64 in NBA history. So, nothing there. So I did decide to go deep in my bag. Look up baseball players. So the only baseball player that I was familiar with for the Mets was Chris Flexen. He used to pitch for the Mets. And there's also, believe it or not, actually, his rookie year, 2006. Guess who wore the number 64? His rookie year. Dustin Pedroia wore the number 64 his rookie year in 2006.
That's a good goal. That's a good goal. I would not have thought that.
Yeah. I had no idea, but yeah. I just like looked up and then I was like the most random one. Like, oh, I'm like, got it. It's perfect. And it's not like one of those like I talked about my beef with ChatGPT before, where they said that Mickey Mantle wore the number 40 something, but no, this was legit. I fact checked on baseball reference. Yeah, it was true that he did wear that.
You got to fact check the AIs. The AIs are great until they're not. You got to fact check them.
That is for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, So I think I was going to say that will be our baseball talk for the day. But however, just big celebration first off to Pete Alonso re-signing with the Mets, the Polar Bear. We're very psyched about that. But obviously, that was the big news for yesterday for baseball. Obviously, spring training is right around the corner. But for now, today we had an awesome day with shout out Matt. By the way, he's at the Devils game. But also we had a big couple of days with hoops as well. So we're definitely very psyched to go over all the trades that went down. I was talking about this with my friends from high school yesterday. Ori, I'm not sure if you agree with this. We kind of talked about this on NBA Max the other day. Do you think like even if you take out the Luka trade, this is the craziest NBA trade deadline of all time?
Yeah, I think so. Especially at least when it comes to like just the amount of moves that seem to be changing the atmosphere or the dynamic of the league. There seems to be quite a few moves that you could say have done that. And ordinarily, I mean, let's be frank. Generally, like these trade deadlines are kind of a bummer because it's mostly speculation. So I'm pretty excited that this one's been fun.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's funny because there were so many media people, and I agreed with them at first when they were like screw the second apron because it's limiting what's happening in this trade deadline, right? And I think that was what everyone thought at first, but I mean, granted, I'm not a fan of the Players Association, whatever they agreed with the league, but it may have opened up even like especially the trade deadline. It may have opened up like more excitement around this kind of period, and I think that's just what the NBA needs. Not that I'm rooting for, I know it's tough when you think about players moving from moving their families from town to town or whatever, but I guess it's weird because fans don't really think about that as often. I definitely don't think about that as often, but I think it was probably the most exciting deadline that I've ever been alive for, aside from the Luka trade.
Definitely agree with that. And I'm thinking like this is like easy the craziest. I think it also might add to the fact that last year wasn't really crazy at all because I'm trying to think of like last year there wasn't many needle moves, but then the year before KD was traded and so was Kyrie, and then the year before that it was the Harden and Ben Simmons swap in addition to the Domantas Sabonis Tyrese Halliburton swap. So we have that history of like big trades, but these are but literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just at the top of my head, all stars that were traded before today's deadline. So just an absolute wild sequence right here to see how much the league has changed in the past week or so. I guess you could even say in the past like 72 hours, because obviously you had to include Saturday night / Sunday morning's trade, everything in the mix there. But with that all being said, Ori, who do you think is the biggest winner out of this week's trade deadline?
I hate to be so cliche and obvious because I think that there's one answer above every other single answer, and I think that's the Los Angeles Lakers. I think it's hard to picture a squad that just took someone else's, franchise player. And I mean, the Lakers just got a 25-year-old franchise player, and they traded away their 31-year-old, secondary player. Like, I'm just like, in every objective scenario, you try to look at this trade, like the Lakers won now and won later, in my opinion. So I think that this was a really big deal for the Lakers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think when you think about somebody like Luka, before last Saturday, I thought Luka was going to be a Dallas Maverick for life. And I think that if Mark Cuban doesn't give up control or doesn't sell a good chunk of his ownership in the Mavericks, I don't think that trade happens. You know? And I think trading for Luka at age 25, like arguably could be a Laker for life now, right? I mean, like you could make that argument. You never know what happens, but I get it. And then on top of that, trading for Mark Williams is a huge move. Maybe you could fact check me on this, but Mark Williams is maybe check what his age is. I forget what his age is actually.
It's his third season.
Yeah,
22.
22, right? Yeah, I was going to say 22, 23, like super young, and I get it. He has flaws in his game, sure. But like for Luka to be good, you need like a rim runner kind of guy. And Celtics fans, at least for me, I was concerned that was going to be Robert Williams. I thought they were going to trade for Robert Williams. I was going to be devastated about that. But Mark Williams is very, very good. And again, not extremely polished, but super young, so much potential, very talented. The Lakers are, in my opinion, the clear winner. If I were to offer another team that I think, just to be a little bit different, I think it's tough to call them winners, but I think the Cavs making that trade for DeAndre Hunter is a really good move. I don't think that it really necessarily moves the needle. I'm not sure. I think they were always going to be a little bit behind the Celtics. It maybe arguably behind the Knicks, but I do think that that's a really, really good move for them to get that two-way wing guy that could potentially throw either the Jays or whoever's on the wing for the Knicks at the time off their game. Again, I don't think it necessarily puts them as the favorites in the East, but I think that's a really good move for them as well.
Very good point, gentlemen. So the Lakers depth chart is looking at the starting five of Luka, Reeves. I've seen a couple different versions of the small forward. I don't know if it's going to be Rui or DFS. I'm imagining they just stick with Rui because he's more comfortable with LeBron and Reeves, but you just want to keep some type of continuity there. But yeah, we'll just say Rui for argument's sake here. Bron for Mark Williams 5, with their bench being their backup bench being Shake Milton, Gabe Vincent, DFS, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes. So, yes, 100% agree that this is definitely the they're 100% the winners of the trade. And whenever you get the chance to trade for a 25-year-old player who's heading into the season, I had him ranked as the third best basketball player in the league. And even though he's been injured and Tatum and Shea had been playing much better, you can make the argument that they're better than Luka as of now. But that being said, come playoff time, there's very few players that you want more than Luka Doncic at the age of 25. So you make that move every single time. But we and I know I'm going to sound like a Luka hater here, but like the question is, for this year, is this going to be like the needle mover for the sake of them this year? It could be, but I'm not sure because when you have the bench consisted of Shake Milton, Shake Milton's probably going to get that much playing time because I'm imagining the Reeves is probably just going to be the main ball handler whenever Luka heads to the bench. But then, so I guess their sixth man would be DFS, and then seventh, and then after that it would be Vando and probably Jackson Hayes. So I don't think there's a single duo in the league that I'd want more than Luka Doncic and LeBron James, even if you say that they're a weird fit together. But at the end of the day, they're both top 10 players. But I don't know. I'm just very curious. Yeah, because obviously, JJ Redick, I said before, like you can't win with the top heavy duo anymore. But it feels like that like with these trades going on now that could be it could be the case. I'm not really sure what to think because I haven't seen the two of them play yet.
I think it's one of those situations where it's hard not to be optimistic when you look at it, like you said. I mean, aesthetically, we are now in a position where the Lakers arguably have two top 10 players, and they're just trying to figure out how to build around that for this current season, this current playoff run. And I tell you, as somebody, you know, as a problem anybody would probably like to have is having two top 10 players and just having to figure out the pieces around them. Because I think that with the addition of Mark Williams, who I'm on record for saying is the biggest addition they could have made, because after the Luke, obviously, but because that's the difference between enabling them to compete this year and this just being a futuristic trade. I think Mark Williams makes it capable of checking both boxes. And I don't know. This is a strange scenario with Luka getting there. And so the Lakers, I feel like they pulled fleece over everyone's eyes, and they are now back into contention. And we just saw it happen over a course of a couple days. And as Celtics fans, we're all super frustrated, I'm sure. But as a fan of the league, like it's kind of a shot in the arm when it comes to, you know, trying to boost that audience up, though. So there's just so many ways to look at this thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree, and I know the two of you talked more in depth, I think, on Sunday about the Luka AD trade. And me personally, I think it was midnight on Saturday. I was laying in bed with my girlfriend. We were watching The Pit on HBO. Really, really great show. If you guys like any hospital shows, heavy recommend. But I remember seeing it and, you know, all my group chats blowing up. And I turned to her. I was like, you don't understand how ridiculous this is. This might be the biggest NBA trade of all time. And it seems weird because, you know, I know there are conspiracies flying around about how it all came to fruition. And I know that it is weird, right? I mean, we can all agree that like the Mavericks could have gotten a better package for that. And that's not to discredit Anthony Davis, because I think overall the Lakers will miss his defensive versatility. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think that it's just weird because I do think they could have gotten a better package. And I really do love Anthony Davis. We all, you know, we love two-way players on this podcast and versatility as a whole. But at the end of the day, he's older. And just to get Luka Doncic at age 25, like the Lakers making this trade is not only to contend for this year, and you saw even with the Mark Williams edition, it's not to contend for this year. It's to contend for years ahead, you know, because if you have a team that has Luka Doncic and Mark Williams and you play in Los Angeles, like it's not really a hard sell to like free agents that come you know, that become free agents, right? We have this, you know, generational player. We have this guy who could be a star in the league one day as a big man. And if you want to come and, you know, play with Luka and Mark Williams and, you know, have your points per game skyrocket, if you're a good shooter, if you're a good, you know, maybe a 3-and-D kind of guy. But I think it's really crazy to think that they're gonna be very good for a long time, and it's frustrating to say as Celtics fans because I think it's such an easy sell to free agents that come.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we kind of segued there. We could do the first losers, which it feels weird because like trading for debatably the best defensive player in the league and like a guy who's been playing like a top 10 player this year. Some people like the first month of the year, some people were saying he was like a top 3, top 5 MVP candidate. But like I said, at the end of the day, when you trade Luka Doncic, you're I did this similarly to in 2023. Excuse me, when the Brooklyn Nets traded away Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I marked them as the biggest losers because you got rid of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, even if you got a good amount of pieces back, which he's like that's one thing I will give the Mavs is like I don't think they're because people say like, oh, you give up Luka Doncic for one pick, which it's not just one pick, it's one pick and a top 10 player in the league. Granted, he's a little older, 32. So like while I do think the trade is extremely lopsided, it's not as lopsided as it sounds like. Like when you're getting back a top 10 player, but just that being said, it's hard to like think of a future when you're building around Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, who I mentioned on the show on Sunday, has a player option after this year. It would be silly for Kyrie to opt out, to opt out and not opt out, but it would be silly for him to change teams, especially if he's going to get more money with Dallas. I don't know how long of an extension they're going to offer him. I also don't know how much longer he wants to play for because I know that he said he wants to retire early, but he's 32. What is he? 32. That is a pretty early retirement, but I don't know how early he meant. So, Mavs are one of, if not the number one clear loser of the trade. Even as silly as it sounds, but that's just what happens when you trade away a top 5 player at the age of 25.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head. Like you can't not say that because, I mean, there are two ways to look at this trade at the end of the day. And I feel like it depends on if your glass is half full or half empty. If your glass is half full and you're a Mavericks fan, you go, hey, we have Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. They're a very dynamic duo. This team on paper could do some things. If you're a glass half empty guy, you're going, wait a second. My two best players all of a sudden are Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. That contextually means something to people. People like those names have stigmas attached to them that aren't necessarily the greatest stigmas, So it's just, I understand trying to be excited and I understand wanting to be excited, but for Luka, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, I think for years now, maybe even since they both came in the league, like Kyrie and Anthony Davis have been a duo that people have, if you think about it as a basketball fan, like that's an exciting duo, right? I mean, like, Kyrie has his faults defensively, but like, I think the two of them together are like pretty cool to think about, right? And I get it. They're not mid-20s anymore. They're not in, honestly, they you could argue they're not in their prime, I guess, but still very excellent players. But I mean, as I'm saying that right now, that they're kind of pacing the Celtics without Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
But I do think the Mavericks are going to slide. I get it, but I don't know. It seems like I'm like speechless because I am, because it doesn't really make sense why this happened. There's so many different ways to look at it because you're like, how did this happen? But then you think Kyrie and AD, it's really fun. But I don't know. You don't really see teams doing that, and it's weird to me.
100%. Good stuff, guys. But yeah, we'll go back to John's point from earlier about DeAndre Hunter because I definitely think the Cavs are winner of the trade as well. I'm someone who's been on high on the Cavs for years. Donovan Mitchell is one of my favorite players in the league. People always make the case that you can't win an NBA Finals with a smaller guard and B without a top 10 player. Which Mitchell I think is like borderline top 12, top 10 might be pushing it. So he would be the guy to build around. Maybe your hope is to eventually turn Evan Mobley into a top 10 player. I definitely think he will be one day. But giving up, they really didn't give a lot up for DeAndre Hunter. I'm someone who really wasn't that high on him. But however, he's at the end of the day, he's averaging 19 points per game on 62% true shooting. So, not the best playmaker, but then again, they really don't need that. Darius Garland is definitely one of the more underrated playmakers in the league. In addition to both Mobley and Allen being two of the best defenders in the league. So, shit! Breaking news. The free agent forward Torrey Craig has agreed to a deal with the Boston Celtics.
Oh,
Oh,
Holy wow. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, let me just finish my DeAndre Hunter point. So,
go for it.
it's going to be a very fun. It's going to be a very fun team for sure. It's going to be a very fun team for sure. Definitely like more well-rounded at this point. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the Cavs are going to be, especially if they meet up with the Celtics in the conference finals.
Mm.
All right, do you guys want to talk about Torrey Craig now? Because or do you want to move on to? Or do you want to stick on this topic? Because I'm fine with either.
Torrey Craig, I don't know how much of a needle mover that's going to be at the end of the day. I like that they're doing something though, so I'll just say that much.
yeah. I think if we want to talk about Celtics for a little bit, I know we were all probably a little bit upset about them trading Jaden Springer. I really enjoyed watching him play. When he did get minutes, when like guys were out, it was fun watching him because, again, we love guys who like, for lack of a better phrase, give a shit on defense, and he went balls to the wall, and it was fun watching him play. I think it's kind of a catch-22 because I do like the fact that he gets to go somewhere and make a difference there. But I think after that trade, they had like a 13-man roster, right? So adding Torrey Craig kind of brings them to 14, and Torrey Craig's like he's another wing guy who's about 6'7". I think he plays pretty good defense. But other than that, there's not really much to add. As Ori said, it's not necessarily a needle mover, but
obviously none of us are watching the game now, but I'm imagining Brad Stevens probably saw something getting cooked by Klay Thompson, saying like, okay, we need like a 3-and-D guy, which to for this depth, but I don't know, maybe the deal was done before that. But yeah, Jaden Springer was I don't know if I don't think Shams tweeted this, but I'm pretty sure I saw John Hollinger tweeted that Springer was waived. So but by the record, so he's gonna have to get picked up by someone else. Which I really don't know which team will pick him up. Obviously he's a specialty player, just like a good shutdown defender who can hit some threes in some spots. So I'm sure he'll get picked up, but I just don't know by who. Like it could be maybe the Grizzlies, could be maybe the they just got off smart salary, so maybe the Grizzlies, maybe the Pelicans. I don't know. Yeah, there's a couple
maybe
of
the Clippers. He had that big game against the Clippers, right?
He did. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fighting falling asleep watching that game. Yeah.
I made sure to fall. I was very angry at the Celtics at the time, so I made sure to fall asleep before that, and luckily I did, because I would have been very upset. Especially like I would have been happy with the win, but I would have been very frustrated going to bed at 1:30 in the morning, having to be up in 5 hours. But so cool. So okay, so we got the winners, Lakers and Cavs so far. We got one of the losers as the Mavs. John, do any other teams come to mind as either big or big-ish losers of the trade deadline?
It's a good question.
I got one.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody, I need explanation on this. Someone needs to. This is where I'm going to pick your basketball minds. What in the world were the Milwaukee Bucks doing? What is this Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton nonsense? Like,
Yep.
is that like just trading for the same kind of guy except worse at defense? Like I don't see, like, I'm not saying Kuzma's a bum. Kuzma has some offensive value for sure. I just don't think that that's what Milwaukee needs to compete. I feel like Milwaukee should have been seeking other pieces, and making a deal for Kuzma for them doesn't move the needle. Like that, to me, that was a confusing deal.
No, I totally agree. I think it's one of those things where the main argument for the Bucks could be we just want like a younger style a little bit, I guess. But if you're going to make that argument, like I don't think Kuzma, and if you're going to make that argument, like your pieces right now are Giannis and Dame. You don't exactly like splurge youngness with that duo, right? Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I don't think that's and I think Kuzma's had a tough year. And maybe he can find something in Milwaukee, but yeah, it was like a head scratcher type of a move.
So this is where I think it is where we turn from the basketball aspect also into the financial aspect of it, because as we mentioned, it's much harder to build rosters around this. And I'm someone who's a little bit higher on Kuzma than most, because even though he's been struggling this year, I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that like, it's kind of like a what's the point thing, kind of like the this is a bad example. This is a kind of a good bad example, but it's similar to when Draymond Green was like the only player in the Warriors in 2020, and just like was completely useless. So I kind of feel like that may have been the case with Kuzma. Was texting my friend Jacob, who's been on the show before. He's a massive Bucks fan. Also has his own podcast. He was obviously very upset by this. It was kind of similar to the Marcus Smart trade for to where like he was a homegrown player. He won a ring with the Bucks as the second best player in the team. He's not, but at the end of the day, I'm actually one of the rare people that's in support of this trade, because Kuzma is, I think he's either 3 or 4 years younger than Middleton, less injury prone. He's a worse player than Middleton right now, but I do think that very well might change. And at the end of the day, the Bucks were just very stagnant. They weren't getting better. They weren't getting worse. They were just staying steady, that 4-5 seed area. And am I saying it's going to stay like it's going to be a massive change with replacing Middleton with Kuzma? No. But it's just one of those things that like they just need to make a change, and just building around, just playing with Dame, Giannis, and Kuzma or say Dame, Giannis, and Middleton for a year and a half now, which is, it was probably just getting a little stale in the locker room and everything, like in the locker room and with the style of play basketball wise. So, I definitely think they made the move more for financial reasons than for the future reasons. But at the end of the day, they did get under the second apron with that trade. So I think that's a big part of the reason why the trade was made in the first place.
And obviously, I think that's got to be the case for sure. Just because, I mean, product to product, Kyle Kuzma, Chris Middleton. I mean, if anything, I think the Bucks need to be careful, because the ramifications for this trade could show up in the postseason, where Chris Middleton's more of a proven performer and Kyle Kuzma is not. So we got to be careful with this if you're Milwaukee, I think.
Definitely agree. And it's funny how I also brought up Marcus Smart's. And the same friend I saw about Jacob texted me a picture of tweets of on NBA and ESPN. It was the next Wizards duo after the trade deadline. It was a picture of Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. So he said like, yeah, this hurts both of us. I said, yeah, both of them deserve much better. So which obviously I gotta think that's like one of the sadder things. Obviously, like John talked about like moving your family and everything, which obviously that's like, as the human aspect, that's like the sadder part of it. But just playing with a contender, playing like the star, like Chris Middleton was just playing with he was like just playing next to Giannis and Dame, 2 top 20, 25-ish players. Marcus Smart was playing on the second team in the West, even if he wasn't playing a ton. Even when Smart was traded from the Celtics to the Grizzlies, he was traded for like on a team that just made the finals and the conference finals, Game 7 the year before. Yep. And just and tons of other moves that we can like run down the line. I just couldn't imagine like just being traded from like an elite team, but then your team had to make a move for either financial reasons or to like make an upgrade, and then you're just playing on like one of the worst teams in the league, even if you're playing in a bigger role.
Yeah, dude, that's gotta be so disheartening. Like, I obviously can't relate, and I'm sure that they have, ways that they compartmentalize it so they're not like super offended. But that's gotta be disheartening.
Absolutely. So yeah, we got the Bucks. We got the what are the like? I don't even know.
Losers or winners right now.
We just did another. We just did our second loser, but yeah, if we want to come up with another winner, if you want to do something else, yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah,
I got a winner that I think is important that we talk about, okay. And that is the San Antonio Spurs. I think that De'Aaron Fox trade was awesome. I think that was exactly the kind of piece that they needed. I think it was exactly the kind of move that De'Aaron Fox probably needs to kind of reinvigorate him and get him moving on another level. Not that he's not playing great, but maybe to excel him to that next stage. I think him and Wemby just makes a lot of sense, and I think that they could be a very tough duo moving forward. That could be a very good foundation for them.
Yeah, or I couldn't agree more. I think like people think De'Aaron Fox is 27. You know, he's not an old guy. And really, really great move for the Spurs because you don't want to like ship off like your young core for a guy who's in his 30s to pair with Wemby, right? Like you making that move for De'Aaron Fox, you give a point guard who is, you know, he's not putting up assist numbers like Trae Young. I get it, but it might be more of a style of play kind of thing. I think pairing him with Wemby for, let's say, 5 years could be awesome for both of their developments. I think you could definitely see Wemby take another step, which is terrifying to say as like not a Spurs fan. But you could even see De'Aaron Fox take another step. I think you're going to see his assist numbers catapult a little bit. I think it's going to be really exciting. That's a really good point.
That's a good call. I agree there.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox is one of my favorite players in the league. Yeah, just like like we said, like we love guys that can play defense, and just like he's extremely athletic. He gives a lot of effort on both ends of the floor. So, I think having a player like that alongside Wemby is going to go a very long way. And yeah, I think another thing is going to be very interesting is that we might see another. This might be like a kind of like a version of the early 2000s. Like, are we seeing like a 20 years later resurface of the Lakers Spurs rivalry for the next decade with Luka and Wemby going at it for a few years there? That'll be a lot of fun for sure. And now that Wemby has some youth help, that'll be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You're going to want to see those games.
Mm-hmm. So, so Lakers, Cavs, Spurs is the winners. And losers, I'm gonna give my first loser. So we got the Mavs, we got the Mavs, we got the who else did we say? We said the Bucks. I'm debating on these next two teams, but I'm gonna go with the Phoenix Suns.
That's a good one.
What are you doing? And it's one of those things where like they probably don't have an answer for it. They don't know what they're doing, and it's probably one of those things where their hands are tied because okay, listen, we have we have like so much money on the books for three of the best scorers in the league. I don't really know if I consider Bradley Beal one of the best scorers in the league anymore, but like just like three super max players. The worst one has a no trade clause. Who A has a no trade clause, and B just isn't that good anymore. So like not many teams want him anyway, and like the teams that were interested in Kevin Durant really doesn't want to go there. So just like throwing him in a bad situation wasn't ever going to be the best look. So they're well over the second apron. Like the only other two teams that had the second apron are the Celtics and the Timberwolves. The Suns are so much higher and above the two of them. But just I don't know where you go from here. Like I'm sure you try to trade KD over the offseason. Do you try to trade Booker? Probably not. He's younger, so probably he's younger. Yeah, he's probably like 28, 29 at this point. I wouldn't trade him, but you got to have some flexibility on your books, and maybe Bradley Beal's contract becomes a little more appeasing after this year with one less year in the books. But I don't know what the Phoenix Suns were thinking in the first place with trading for Bradley Beal. Maybe the Booker was going to be a better point guard and facilitator than he was, which he's fine. But like he shouldn't. That's not who he is. He shouldn't be like the only. Like, his only job is to facilitate. So yeah. All in all, the Phoenix Suns are they're indebatably the worst place. Like they made some they did make some trades they did make some first round picks because they did get rid of Yusuf Nurkic, which ended up being a good move. But I don't know where you go from here because you have those three guys.
Yeah, nothing in Phoenix makes sense because didn't they also trade Josh Okogie as well?
They did for I forgot who
Nick Richards.
Nick Richards, yeah.
Which I don't like. The Phoenix Suns are like one bad deal away from becoming the Atlanta Hawks of the West, and I mean that in the sense that they're gonna be just that team treading water, stuck in mediocrity lands, not getting lottery picks, but not actually being contenders. Like they are gonna be right in that mix, and to say that when you have a guy like Durant and Booker on the squad currently. You're not giving these guys the best chance to win right now. Phoenix, that's going to be a troublesome situation soon.
Yeah, and I think they might have the Washington Wizards to blame for that, giving Bradley Beal a no trade clause in his contract. I think that, and we've talked about it numerous times on this podcast, that like I always like to relate it almost to the Nets going for James Harden. And I think James Harden at the time was a much better player than Bradley Beal. Like the Suns making this trade is much worse than the Nets trading for James Harden. But the league is no longer a three super team, a 3-guy super team, right? You need those, I think at the most 2, superstars or 2 great players, and then surround them with, talent, with good depth. And I think the league is taking notice on that, but the Suns are just kind of left in the dark and left holding this Bradley Beal contract. And I think that's why everyone, thought that it was going to be Jimmy Butler. And I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit, but Jimmy Butler to the Suns, because you got 2 guys making a shit ton of money and underperforming. But I think the Suns are just in a really, really tough spot with what they have to do here.
So this year, the Suns are $25 million over the second apron. Next year, it cuts down to $13 under the second apron, which is second in the league under the Celtics, who would be 18 18 over the second apron. So, but at least with the Celtics, they're playing like they're one of the best teams in the league now. So that's the price you pay. But like this between the I guess we won't really talk about the Timberwolves a ton because like they really didn't do anything, and we already know we kind of know what their direction is because they traded Cat. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting what the Suns do because like I think that trading Kevin Durant will be the right move of the offseason, especially if he doesn't get injured. Because if he doesn't get injured, that means his value is still going to be there. So, but which team is going to bite? Who knows? Because he doesn't want to go back to Golden State, and it seems like he didn't want to go back. He seems like he didn't want to go to Memphis either. Which I wonder what's so wrong with Memphis that the superstars don't want to go there, because like I understand that it's quieter and maybe they want more of the attention, but they got a good basketball team going on down there. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to go down there.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly. I think that'd be a fun squad to be a part of.
I think living in Memphis would be pretty cool too.
Same.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. It's warm. Yeah, it's warm down there. So I don't. Yeah, like maybe all the flying they did to do from all the West Coast. You live in the East Coast, but then you have to go flying out to the West Coast. So maybe that's part of the reason why. But
right.
Okay, but yeah. John brought up Jimmy Butler. So John, do you think who do you think won the trade? And if there are any winners, give me your take on the trade.
I love this trade because they both lost. I think that it's funny because I think the Heat got they got a fine package for what situation they were in, right? I think if you have a player who's making that much money and not exactly performing, it's tough to trade him, right? Because like whoever you're trading him to has all the leverage. But I think the Warriors, they gave up, Wiggins, who I think is, it's tough to talk shit about Wiggins because he played so well against the Celtics in the finals. But the fact that the Warriors turned around and gave Jimmy Butler $121 million over 2 years is baffling to me. Like baffling. Like even if you gave 2020 Jimmy Butler that contract, I'd be like, what are you doing? And I get it. Like the Warriors are in a tough spot because they have Curry and Draymond, who are, as great as Curry is, and as impactful as Draymond is, sure. That they're in the later stages of their career, and it's win now mode. And I think that they definitely tried to get KD, and then once they realized that was impossible, turned around and said, let's try to see if we can, make something out of nothing here, and got Jimmy Butler. But if the Warriors, let's say, make the play-in or somehow slide into a 6th seed and make the first round of the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler gets hurt or fizzles out in the playoffs, is anyone surprised? No, because this guy doesn't play in the regular season. It's a conditioning thing. It's an issue. You see the reason why the Celtics, why they have relatively stayed healthy is because these guys buy into the regular season. They're well conditioned. They're not burnt out. and it's like two sides of the spectrum, right? Because now in my brain, I'm thinking about the Knicks, who Tom Thibodeau just plays these guys like 89 minutes a night, and it's different. But yeah, I just think like as a Celtics fan and a Jimmy Butler hater, you can respect what he's done. You can respect the games he's had, but giving a guy who's averaging 17, 5 and 5, $61 million a year is baffling to me.
And especially considering that you just traded somebody doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Andrew Wiggins is giving you the same exact production essentially. So like I mean I get it's Jimmy. You're trading because you want playoff Jimmy. That's the whole point. We all know that. You're trading for playoff Jimmy. And I don't think playoff Jimmy, even at its peak, I think is at best going to get you maybe one playoff series if you're the Warriors. And so that to me is not worth it. Like this doesn't. Speaking of not moving the needle, like they made this move, but like the fit with Curry and Draymond's weird. And once again, it all depends on what he does in the playoffs. And that's a lot of eggs in that basket for a guy that's not going to give you a lot during the regular season.
Definitely agree. Yeah, and I already won of my victory lap on social media yesterday by announcing to the world that in the first episode of NBA Max, I get one of my takes aged well. What was edited out of that video is when I read it, what allowed the tweet that Jimmy Butler wasn't going to sign an extension. Then I took it back, but like just the video that I showed, I didn't take it back. So we'll so we'll talk about that another day. But I don't know. It's just because we know why the Warriors did it, and we know why the Heat did it. The Heat were desperate, so they just gave away Jimmy at the price they could. Maybe they could have gotten more for him in the offseason. Probably not, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, because it's only a 1-year deal. But I don't know. Yeah, he's 35. He's 35. They had to give him that money because you didn't want to give up your assets for nothing. Yeah, they gave up a pick and Andrew Wiggins, and eventually so I'm very interested. Kyle Anderson was the other guy I was thinking of, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Heat recover from this, because obviously, especially in the offseason, because obviously you got Bam. You're not gonna, despite him having a pretty bad season, you're not going to get rid of him. With Tyler Hero, the All-Star season, you're going to hold on to him, imagining those are the only two untouchable guys over the offseason. But Pat Riley's also 80. Is he 80? Or is he? Isn't he's not 80? Is he? Or is someone just?
He's gonna be very close.
He's close to it. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe ownership should.
Turning 80 in March.
Okay. Yeah. So he's 80. Yeah. So yeah. Maybe ownership should have a sit down conversation with them, saying like, okay, listen, thank you. We'll give you. We're gonna build you a statue if you haven't already. You've done a lot for the franchise, but it's time to move on, and it's time for you to move on too. Like, you go home and spend some time with the family. And yeah. So
I tell you, Jimmy Butler's lucky, because I feel with all my heart that Pat Riley, if they don't make this deal, was just going to sit on it and sit on him and let him just rot. So I think Jimmy Butler should be thanking his lucky stars that he found a way to make this work with Golden State and get them to sign the extension.
Under the new CBA, you're not allowed to just tell players to sit okay, yeah, just go home and we'll figure this out, that you have to suspend him. He would have 1,000,000% suspended him for the rest of the season. He wouldn't have suspended him for the rest of the season. He would have said, okay, we'll suspend you for 5 games here. You'll come back for 2 games. We'll suspend you for 10 more games here. He would have made his life a living hell, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so and there's nothing more bitter than an 80-year-old man. So that was absolutely going to happen. So,
sure.
Okay. Any other big? I think we talked about. Oh yeah. I guess this was, you can say this big-ish because like it's, but yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I think the Toronto Raptors are a loser of this trade line as well.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much.
What are you doing? Again, like similar to Suns, what are you doing? You traded away Pascal Siakam, you got rid of Fred VanVleet, and you got rid of OG Anunoby, like all very good players. Granted, I understand like your franchise wasn't really going many places with that roster, because obviously without Kawhi Leonard, like they just would have been a very good team. Like they were the second seed the year after that, and then Some roster pieces fell off, and they just weren't able to do a lot after that. But you got rid of a lot of good players, and it just feels like you haven't gotten like a ton back. You got Brandon Ingram's a good player, but he hasn't been an all-star caliber player in a couple years now. Manuel Quickly and RJ Barrett are very good players, but like I wouldn't consider them. I consider them third. They could be third or fourth options on a championship team if you have like an elite 1 and 2 option, which they don't have. Scotty Barnes could one day be a top 10 player. Last year I would have said maybe top 5, but like that's probably pushing it at this point. Then I guess BI is your second. Like he's a couple years younger than Siakam, so I could see that reasoning. But I feel like you only make the trade if you have a clear vision for the future, which they don't.
Right, and that's exactly it. This is a deal that you make if you have any sort of idea what you're going for in the future, and by making this trade, they basically showed us that they have no idea what they're doing in the future. So I didn't get this a lot. It seemed once again like just kind of a trade to just have happen. Like there's no needle moving whatsoever. But I don't know. I mean, Brandon Ingram probably needs a fresh start, so good for him. I'd like to see what he can do in Toronto. But other than that, like, who won this?
Yeah, it's like they're circling the mediocrity drain, right? I mean, like you guys said, trading Fred VanVleet, trading OG Anunoby, good moves. If you are, I don't think tanking is the right term, but just getting younger, right? And prioritizing, establishing a young core. And I get it. With a young core, you need to bring in, solid veterans. I just think Brandon Ingram isn't a solid veteran. I think he's just like a middle of the pack kind of, player who's going to win you more games that you almost need to, right?
Yeah, it kind of comes across as like one of those like stopgap like backup quarterbacks or something.
Yeah.
Where like you feel like he could be in there and he could be like the managing quarterback and he can get you 20 points, but like if you're depending on him too much, you're probably not going anywhere.
Selling like the occasional like couple hundred tickets or something like
that.
that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. I don't think there's really any teams that made any bad moves or even teams that should have made moves just because I don't even know. Just because the Houston Rockets didn't make any moves because they're on a 4-game losing streak now, but at the end of the day, like I understand why they wouldn't want to go all in for Kevin Durant because you're like a younger team and you don't want to make the risk there. Same thing with the Grizzlies. I guess the only other team that I could see, the Knicks got rid of Jericho Sims to get under the second apron, which good for them there. Because at the end of the day, when Robinson was going to come back, he was going to be the guy to be your backup center there. Yeah. So,
wait, Mitchell Robinson's hurt.
I guess the only other team that could see, I don't want to consider them losers just because like there's a lot of other teams that are considered losers over them. But I guess maybe the Denver Nuggets just because. They're just a team. They're a team that's been good all year. Like they started off awful. They went on a great winning streak after that. And what are they in the last 10? Were they 6-4 in the last 10? Probably 7-3. So yeah, they're a very good team right now. And I for one would trust them in a playoff series over Memphis and Houston because of their experience and the fact that they have Jokic. But and I don't know. Like, I don't know. They really didn't have many assets, but. So I don't know if I could consider them losers because there's really nothing else that they could do, but and maybe they will be active in the buyout market. But at the end of the day, when I hope this isn't another year wasted for Nikola Jokic.
Another extraordinary year. Yeah, I agree. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're wasting these things.
Sure. Okay, so. I guess for the last we have plenty of time. We don't have to use all of it, but I guess for the last besides the Lakers, because I guess besides the Thunder, I guess we could say besides the Thunder, who do you think would be the John? You know who you would pick for the second best team in the West now?
Is it crazy to say the Lakers?
It's not.
It's not crazy to say the Lakers.
No.
Which is crazy that it's not crazy to say the Lakers.
Yeah,
because it would have been crazy last week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I think the Rockets have played really good basketball. really, really fun team, really young team. And I like that they prioritize defense. I love that. But like LeBron and Luka run into the Rockets. Who are you taking? I think I'm taking the Lakers. Like it's again, it's crazy to say. I mean, I think sorry guys, that's my dinner. I think that yeah, I think it might be the Lakers.
It might be the Lakers. Is that messed up?
No, it is not.
I really like. I was so out on what the Lakers were doing this year, and all of us were. I mean, to a certain extent, it was just going to be another LeBron James longevity year. He gets his stats. The team's competitive enough. We weren't going to think anything of it. You get this deal coming along, and now all of a sudden, people are going, well, what if LeBron gets another chip with another superstar Hall of Famer? You know, like the narratives have just changed so fast. I can't keep up.
It's gonna be wild. Absolutely. Because even if if the Lakers win the Lakers win the you could flip on the other side because because I've well accepted the fact that like no matter what happens, people are going to argue that you could use the good faith and bad faith, which is why unless I'm arguing with friends, I try not to try not to debate with people online about it. But it's going to turn into LeBron has 5 rings, and one of those rings he didn't win Finals MVP, which I don't know, which I also don't know if the league would allow that to happen. But also, that's like one of those things. But it's weird just because again, the Lakers are the 5 seed now. But we have seen teams. We saw it with the Mavs last year, but like young teams go on runs. But at the end of the day, Luka's because like I don't see I'm a big fan of Jaren Jackson Jr. Big fan of John Moran as well. As Ori and I discussed in the preseason. But yeah, can they lead the team to the finals? I don't think so. Can the Rockets do it? I don't think so either. They do have Ime Udoka, who has led his team to the finals before. But I would say OKC is the clear one, and then I would say 2 and 3 would be, in my opinion, even though the standings don't say so. I would say Denver and LA because of the superstar status.
Yeah,
I will say, as you know, we're all big Celtics fans. You know, I think we've done enough hyping up above the Lakers on this podcast, but I think the Thunder are the clear one, as you said, Chris. Yeah. I think it's like, you know, we can argue about who's 2, 3. I really do like Memphis a lot. You know, Lakers made some great moves, but I think I'd be pretty shocked personally if anybody but OKC came out of the West.
For sure, and I think it's after that. Maybe there's a world where Anthony Edwards lights it up. Maybe there's a world where playoff Kawhi finally plays in the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. But yeah, that would be fun, but I don't think so. And then I guess the other world would be Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Steph Curry and now Jimmy Butler lighting it up. Neither of these teams can win the finals, but maybe going up, making it interesting in the playoffs could be fun.
Yeah, not a lot of contenders there, but a lot of intriguing matchups, I guess.
Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm.
A lot of even last year, a lot of narrative conversation matchups. You know, it was interesting last year. I think it's going to be even more interesting this year. I'm just glad it's in the West.
Yeah.
And then the East, the Cavs are currently 5 games ahead of the Celtics. I think we all agree, though. John and our brother Matt and our friend Matt have all made fun of me for being a Celtic doomer, even though I never said that they're not going to make the finals. They are still my pick to make the finals, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't make it at this point. But I'm interested to see how the rest of the standings go, because I'm imagining that it's going to remain Cavs 1, Celtics 2, Knicks 3. So the Celtics would be playing the Knicks in the conference finals unless someone gets injured. But after that, Jimmy Butler's gone, so we can't even play with the hypothetical of or I guess we can because it's Eric Spoelstra would be leading the team. That would be the conversation. But if they climb up to the even if they stay at the 6th seed and then they beat the Knicks in the first round, or if they climb to the 4th or 5th seed, can Eric Spoelstra team with experience beat a inexperienced Cleveland Cavaliers team? Who knows? But that'll be interesting because he's definitely even though I'm someone who has been higher in the Bucks before, I'm pretty safe to say I'm not sure if they'll win a playoff series, and I'm pretty far out on them. I don't think I no longer think there is a world where they beat the Cavaliers in a first round series, second round series.
Talk about how the dynamics change so fast, because that's another narrative that I feel like I was definitely on board with the Bucks train. Obviously, early in the season it was tough because they started off weak, But once that train started going, the cohesion between Giannis and Lillard is too hard to ignore. What they can do is too hard to ignore. I want them to be the third contender in the East. Like, I feel like they're the team that people should be worried about. But after this Kyle Kuzma trade, they don't know what they're doing.
No, they do not. Okay. So, yeah, we're at the top of the hour now. So, I think we're all good to go. But I don't think there's anything else for us to cover because, yeah, we covered all the teams. I think all of us agreed that it's Celtics Thunder finals. So,
I will say I do not agree with that sentiment. I am on the record. I think it is the Celtics Nuggets finals.
Are you still? Okay, I like that.
I am a Nuggets guy for the West. I think that having the best player in the world is going to matter against OKC because OKC thinks they have the best player in the world, and
And one last thing, hopefully the Celtics turn this around. But however, I do think the Mavericks are a much better team than the Sixers, so I don't know if they're going to turn around 20 points in a quarter and a half. But crazy things have happened before, so we'll see what happens there. But gentlemen, Ori, thanks for coming on. John, as per usual, thanks for coming on. But all in all, I forgot to put up the banner today. That's quite unfortunate, but that's okay. But yeah, this is make sure to follow Megan Hooper on all social media platforms. Subscribe to @SportsFluent to catch every episode on Thursdays at 8. So follow, and also follow @SportsFluent on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But yeah, again, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for watching the show. And until then, keep grinding, stay open. Have a good night, everyone.
Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey man, call your mother.
It means nothing. It means nothing.
No, they lying to you. It's about the money.
Now you're more fluent.